Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well today. In this video, I'm going to be going over and making an answer key for the Unit 6 Homework 3 assignment. Now, while you could have answered 12 questions combined from parts 1, 2, and 3, you also could have just done 6 problems from part 4. And specifically, each of these problems are going to be dealing with money. Whether we're finding the discount, or the tip, or tax, this is always going to be representing the part. Let's take a look at the problems in part 1. Number 1, a video game costs $36. You have a coupon that gives you 20% off. What's the discounted price? Well, first of all, notice that we have a discount here of 20%, and we have an original price here of $36, right? So if we have the original price, which is 100% of everything, and we have a discount of 20%, that means you don't have to pay for 20% of the item, then you're gonna have to multiply this by $36, right? So what percent are we paying? Well, 100 minus 20 is 80. So you're still going to be paying for 80% of the $36. Again, of means multiplication. 80% is the same thing as 0.8 as a decimal. And multiplying 0.8 times 36, we can go ahead and just plug that into a calculator. So 0.8 times 36, that is going to be 28.8. So this is going to be $28.80. Okay, so that's number 1. If you wanted to find 20% and then subtract it, that's also okay. But we can also just find 80% right away, and we can save ourselves a step here. Okay, so that is number 1. Number 2, you want to buy a bag of Takis that cost $2.49. So that's a cost here, and they are currently 25% off. That's our discount. The question is, what is the discounted price? Okay, so just like earlier, we would typically pay for 100% of the price, but there's a discount. And the discount is 25%, so we're going to save that. We don't have to pay for it. And whoopsies, we're going to actually pay $2.49, right? And so 100% minus 75%, or 100% minus 25% rather, is 75%. 75% times the $2.49. 75% as a decimal, we can slide it over twice to the left. That's going to be 0.75 or 75 hundredths. And multiplying that by $2.49 or 2.49. We're going to find 3/4 of that price, and going ahead and multiplying that on a calculator, which you guys totally can do so as well, we're going to get a value of 1.8675. Okay, so well, this might seem a little bit strange just because there's so many decimal places. Keep in mind that money is always going to be rounded to the penny here. Okay, and so that's the penny in hundredths place. And the 7, which is in the thousandths place, always kind of tells the hundredths place what to do. And since the 7 is 5 or higher, it's going to bump that 6 up. And we're going to say that this is going to be 1.87 or $1.87. Okay, so the original price was $2.49, but the discounted price here is $1.87. Essentially, this is 3/4 of the original price. So we're saving 1/4 or 25%, but we're still paying for 75%. It's about $1.87. Sometimes you're going to have to round if you have pieces of pennies or parts of pennies. Okay, that's number 2. Moving on to number 3, we see a box of chicken nuggies cost $4.49. They are currently going to be 35% off. That's a nice little sale. What's the discounted price? Okay, so just like before, we typically would pay 100% of the price if we didn't have any discount, but we are saving 35%. Let me write that a little nicer. And we're going to find that price of this $4.49. Okay, if we're not paying for 35%, we are still paying for 65%. So 100% minus 35% is 65%, and we're going to multiply that by 4.49. 65% as a decimal, that's just 65 hundredths. Just slide it over twice to the left or divide it by 100. And multiplying 0.65 times 4.49. We get this value of 2.9185. Again, I just threw this into a calculator, not doing anything too special, so feel free to do that as well. What's in the hundredths place? Well, that's this 1 here. That's 91 cents, but this is really closer to 92 cents, right? This 8 is telling us this is closer to 92 cents than 91 cents. So this is just going to round to roughly $2.92. Okay. That would be the new price of these chicken nuggies after this 35% discount. Again, you can just find 65% of that value, and we have our answer. That's number 3. Okay, moving on to number 4, we see a shirt you like costs $24.99, and it's currently 60% off since it is on clearance. What's the discounted price? Okay, well, we have no discount. We would pay for 100% of it, but we have a 60% off discount. So we don't have to pay for 60% of it. and that's of this price. Let me write that a little nicer, $24.99. We don't have to pay for 60% of it. We still have to pay for 40% of it, right? So the smarter thing to do is to go ahead and just multiply. 40% is 0.4 or 4 tenths, and 4 tenths times 24.99. We can just take this 0.4, multiply by 24.99, and that looks like we're going to get about 9.996. Okay, 3 decimal places. Again, we only want 2. So this is the hundredths place, the second 9. The 6 is going to tell that to bump up. But since 9 bumps up to a 10, it's actually going to bump up this 9. And when that 9 becomes a 10 also, it's actually going to bump up this 9. So if you think about it, this is like $9.99, but it's closer really just to $10. That 6 is just going to bump everything up. So this final price here, we're just going to round and say that this is going to be $10, right? It's definitely closer to $10 than it is to $9.99. So that would be the discounted price. So you don't have to pay for 60%, but you do pay for 40%, and that's less than half. So $10 is less than half of $24.99. Cool. Number 5, a new cell phone costs $949.95, and it's currently 20% off on Black Friday. What is the discounted price? Okay, so we have 100% of the phone if there's no sale, and we're saving 20% of the price of this amount of $949.95. Again, of means multiplication. We don't have to pay for 20% of it. We still have to pay for 80%. So 80% of 949.95. 80% as a decimal is really just 0.8, right? Just slide the decimal over twice to the left of 949.95. And plugging this into a calculator, 0.8 times 949.95 is going to be, oh, we don't have to do any rounding. That's kind of nice. 959.96. So this would be the price. So if we don't have to pay for 20% of it, we still pay for 80% of it. And there we have, that's going to be $759.96. And last question here, number 6. A backpack you like costs this $39.95. It's currently 30% off for a back-to-school sale or back-to-school shopping. What is the discounted price? Okay, so if it's 30% off, then originally it's 100%. Take away the 30%, and that's of the $39.95. And if you don't pay for 30, that's still, you're going to pay for 70%. 70% times $39.95. 70% as a decimal, slide it over twice, or divide by 100, that's 0.7. 0.7 times $39.95. And let's see what that is on a calculator. 0.7 times 39.95 is going to be 27.965. Okay, it's got 3 decimals, so we got to go to the hundredths place. That 5 is going to tell the 6 to bump up. And we're going to say that this is going to end up being $27.97. So that is roughly what this backpack would cost with the discount. Okay, so there you have. This is questions 1 through 6 in part 1. And in each of these examples, we were just finding the discounted price. We ignored tax in each of these examples. We'll talk about tax in a little bit. All right, so now we have part 1 is now officially complete. So let's move on to part 2. In part 2, we are actually going to be finding the tax and the tip and the total price if you're going to go out to a restaurant. Okay, so for number 7, we see that food at Taqueria, a nice restaurant here, costs $42.39. The tax rate in New Jersey is about 7%. We know it's really closer to 6.625% exactly, but we're going to round it to 7. And we decide to tip 20%, okay? We're gonna find the total cost of the meal. So what's the quickest way to go about this? Well, the quickest way to go about this is, well, you have to pay for 100% of the food, right? And then we also have to pay for a 7% sales tax, roughly. And we also are gonna have to pay for a 20% tip. So we're gonna have to add up these 3 percentages, and that's gonna be of the cost of the food, $42.39, right? So you're going to hopefully get the hang of this as we keep on going, but if we want to add everything up, this is going to be 127% multiplied by this $42.39. As a decimal, what is 127%? Well, it's more than one whole. It's actually going to be 1.27 as a decimal, and multiplying that by 42.39, that's really what we're going to be doing here, right? And notice if you multiply anything larger than 1, like 1.27, it's going to create a larger value, which makes sense, right? Because tax and tip costs more on top of the meal. So multiplying this out on a calculator, you should get 53.8353, okay? Go ahead and make sure you have all of those values. Pennies are here in this value, and this 5 is going to tell the 3 to bump up. So how much is this food actually going to cost? I think $53.84. Okay, that's with tax and tip included of the original amount of the cost of the food. Okay, just keep in mind, as I keep saying the word of means multiplication, so that should hopefully be more clear as we go. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at number 8. Now that number 7 is done, food at Jam and Crepes is going to cost $23.58. Tax is 7%, and you decide to tip 20%, and we're going to find the total cost of the food. Okay, so just like earlier, you're going to have to pay for 100% of the food, and then you're going to pay a 7% sales tax, and then you're going to pay for maybe a 20% tip on top of it, and it's going to be of this amount of $23.58, right? So just like earlier, we're going to add these up to get 127%, and we're going to multiply that by the 23.58, and 127% is just 1.27 as a decimal, or 1 27 hundredths. And multiplying that by 23.58, let me go ahead and put that into a calculator, and you can check as well. Let's see what that's going to be. That looks like 29.9466. Okay. Looking at the hundredths place or the pennies place, the 6 means you have 6/10 of a penny. I know it's kind of weird to have parts of a penny, but this is going to say this is roughly $29.95. Okay, so even though the food costs $23.58, once you add on tax and tip, it's closer to $30 actually, a little bit less than $30. Okay, that is number 8. Let's take a look at number 9 here. So food at KBG Grill, it's kind of a Korean restaurant in Princeton, costs $32.48. Tax is 7%, and you tip 20%. Okay, so just like earlier, very similar. So we'll have 100% plus the 7% plus the 20%. Of means multiplication. We want to find that of the 32.48. Okay, so this restaurant's actually kind of like it's like Chipotle, but Korean food. So if you ever want to check it out, it's pretty good. I recommend it. Let's see, that is going to be 1.27 multiplied by 32.48. Let's see, plug it into a calculator. It takes too much time to do long multiplication or standard algorithm anyway. I'm sure you could do it, but you can just use a calculator so we can get to the point a little bit quicker and understand what we're actually talking about. Let's not get caught up in the nitty-gritty there. To the nearest penny, this 9 is going to tell the 4 to round up. So we're going to say that this is going to be $41.25. Okay, so this is with a 7% sales tax and a 20% tip. This total food would cost $41.25. That's number 9. Okay, moving on to number 10. So for number 10, food at Jules Thin Crust Pizza costs $52.10. They have pretty good pizza there, thin crust, and tax is 7%, and we're tipping 20%. So hopefully you're getting used to this pattern here, but you're going to pay for all the food. That's 100%. As a decimal, that's just 1. I'm going to pay for some tax, pay for some tip, and the total cost here is $52.10, right? So this is going to be, once again, 127% times the $52.10. As a decimal, that's 1.27 multiplied by 52.1. Don't need to write the 0 if we don't want to. Doesn't make a difference at the end of a decimal. And it looks like we're going to have 66.167. And rounding to the nearest penny, the 7 says, hey, that's actually closer to 17 cents, not 16 cents. So remember, do a 4 to the floor, 5 to the sky, and round that up. $66.17 is what this is basically saying. Okay, that's for Jules Thin Crust Pizza. Moving on to number 11, it says we have food at Cross Cultures. This is an Indian restaurant in town. And that costs $63.42, and food costs 7%, and we're going to tip 20%. So again, just some practice getting used to this. Some of my favorite restaurants in town that I've been to at least one time. And we're going to go ahead and add up all the percentages here, and it's going to be of this $63.42. Okay. And you hopefully are noticing as you buy more expensive food, you're definitely going to pay more tax and tip on top of that. If you buy cheaper food, because it's a percentage of that amount, it's going to be less, right? So this is 63.42. That's going to be 1.27 or 1 27 hundredths. Multiplying that by this. I'm going to throw that into a calculator and see what I get. Okay, lots of decimals. Let's say 80.5434. Okay, so here is the penny. This 3 is actually not high enough to bump it up to 55 cents. So we're going to say this is $80.54. That's the total amount of the bill with tax and tip, and as well as the food. Okay, that is number 11. And let's see, we got number 12 here. Number 12 says food at Tomo Sushi costs $62.64. Tax is 7%, tip 20%. Okay, so let's see if we can go ahead and just fill in this information. Same as earlier, of $62.64. Could go for some sushi right about now. 127% of 62.64. 127%, that's 1.27 times 62.64. 1.27, throwing this into a calculator, of course. I'm not going to go ahead and do all this by hand. This is going to be 79.5528. This is the pennies, and the 2 is going to tell the 5 to stay the same. So we're going to say this is about $79.55. Okay, that is going to be the total price for this food at Tomo Sushi. Okay, that is number 12. So if you just take a look, hopefully you're seeing a pattern in each of these examples, in each of these practice problems for each of these different restaurants. When you find the tax total, tax and tip to find the total price, you can just do it just like this. Now, if you just wanted to find the tax, then each time what you would do is you would just take 7% as a decimal, which is 0.07, and just multiply that by the price of the food. Then you can find out what just tax costs, right? If you want to know how much you're just paying for tip, you can just take 20% as a decimal, which is 0.2, and then multiply that by 42.39. That'll get you the prices of just the tax and just the tip if you were looking for those individually. All right, cool. You might also just want to notice here that in each of these cases, whenever you're finding this percent amount of the same original amount, which is the price of the food bill at each of these restaurants, we actually end up having this 100% plus 7% plus 20% in each of these scenarios. So hopefully you're seeing the consistency across the board here. You can see we also did something very similar in the first 6 problems where in each case, when you're saving money with these discounts, right, that you're actually subtracting, and we're really just saying 100% minus whatever that decimal is, or if you're looking at decimals, it's 1 minus the decimal version each time. Okay, so that's the first 6, and then here's the next 6 where we're finding tax and tip added onto the meal. And here's part 3 where we're actually going to combine the concepts a little bit. Okay, so in part 3, we're going to find the discounted price, but then we're going to add tax on top of it. Okay, so for number 13, we have a new cell phone cost $849, and that's the original cost, and it's currently on sale for 15% off, and then tax is going to be 7%. So this is a little bit trickier of a problem. We have to actually do this in 2 separate steps because the amount is changing, right? We're not paying 7% of the original amount. We're finding 7% of the cheaper price after it's on sale. So let's see if you can kind of make sense of this. Now, we don't have to pay for 15% of the phone. We're actually going to pay for 85% of the phone. So let me write that out here. So 100% is if you had no sale, but it's on sale for 15% off. And so we're going to multiply that value, that sum or difference rather, by the price. And I'll just write 849. So if we don't pay for 15% of it, we are still paying for 85% of the $849. As a decimal, that's going to be what? 0.85 or 85 hundredths times 849. And going ahead and multiplying here, that's 0.85 times 849. and we're going to get a price of $721.65. Now, that's not our answer, right? So this is the price of the phone after the discount, but what's a little bit more realistic is if we also add on the tax on top of that, right? So at this point, we have 100% of the price of the phone, and we're going to have to add on 7% sales tax. And the new amount that we're finding this of is going to be the 721.65. So make sure you do use this new amount. Adding these together, this is going to be I don't want to skip any steps here, 107% of the 721.65. Now 107% is 1.07 multiplied by 721.65. And go ahead and putting that into a calculator, 1.07 times 721.65. I'm getting roughly, or exactly, I guess, if I'm writing out every number, 772.1655. Okay, this is the pennies. The 5 tells that to round up. And so if we're going to say, like, how much money is this actually, we're going to say this is going to be $772.17. Okay, that is going to be the cost of this phone after you have a discount. And once you find the discount, then we have to find the sales tax, which is 7% on top of that. Add that on, and we're going to get a final price of $772.17. That's number 13. All right, so now on to question 14. So we have a new computer, costs $1,999.99, of course, not quite $2,000. And it is currently on sale for 20% off, and tax is 7%. What's the final cost you'll pay for the computer? So let's find the discount first, because the tax will be on the discounted price. So we do have to pay for 100% with no sale, but we get to have a discount of 20%. Let's take away 20% of this $1,999.99. If we don't pay for 20%, we end up paying for 80% of this amount of means multiplication. So there's that. As a decimal, this is 0.8. So 0.8 times 1,999.99. 0.8 multiplied by this value, if I put in the correct amount of nines, I think, is going to be 1599.992. Okay, hopefully I did this correctly. This is the pennies place, and the nines not moving anywhere because that 2's like not able to move it along. So let's go ahead and say, well, this price here, I know we're rounding slightly as we've been doing to the pennies, is going to be $1,599.99. This will be the discounted price. Once you have a 20% discount, this is how much the new computer is going to cost now with a 20% sale. Now, you're going to still have to pay sales tax of 7%. Now, that's going to be not on the original amount of $1,999.99, but for this discounted price. Okay, just make sure you always do it that way. So you do have to pay for 100% of this price plus 7% of this price. Okay, what's this price I'm talking about? It's this 1599.99. So added together, this is 107%. 107% of this 1599.99. Well, what's 107%? That's 1.07 as a decimal. Just go ahead and converting that, 0.99. And multiplying this out, 1.07 times 1599.99. Let's see what that's going to be. Looks like we have $1,711.9893. So that doesn't seem to make so much sense. So that 9 is going to bump this 8 up to a 9. And we can go ahead and say, okay, this is $1,711. And that 9 bumps the 8 up and say, let's say it's 99 cents. So this will be the final price of this new computer if you're looking at a 20% discount and there's a 7% sales tax on top of it. Okay, that's number 14. So moving on to number 15, we have a new video game, costs $59.99 originally, and it's on sale. It's 30% off, and we have 7% sales tax. What's the final price? So, okay, let's see if you're now getting the hang of this. If you don't have to pay for 30% of it, what percent do you still have to pay? Think about it. If you were thinking 70%, lovely. I'm actually going to skip this step now. I'm just going to go for the last three or so, last four, I think 4, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's four more problems. If we don't have to pay for 30% of it, keep in mind that you still have to pay for 70%. So I skipped a step here and see if you guys can make sure that still makes sense. 70% is going to be 0.7, 0.7 as a decimal, right? And multiply this. It's of that amount, so we're multiplying. And plugging this into a calculator, we see that this is going to be, what is this? This is going to be 41.993. Now, rounding this to nearest penny, this 3 is going to tell the 9. No worries, just stay the same. You're not quite another penny. And this is going to be about $41.99. Okay, this is going to be the discounted price if you had a 30% discount. Okay, this is 70% of it. Since you're not paying for 30, you're paying for 70%. Okay, now let's see about the next step. Now we are going to say we are paying for 100% of this $41.99, but you have to pay for 7% tax on top of it. That's going to be a greater part than the whole. And so I'm going to not add 100 plus 7 separately. I'm just going to go ahead and say, let's find 107% of this amount. We have $41.99, right? And multiplying this will get larger, which makes sense with the extra tax. So this is 1.07 multiplied by 41.99, and seeing this on a calculator. 1.07 times 41.99 is going to be 44.9293. Rounding to the nearest penny, this 9 is going to tell the 2, hey, you're basically another penny. So we can go ahead and say that's going to be $44, excuse me, and 93 cents. Okay, so there we have it. This will be the price of this video game when you had a 30% discount, but then you still had to pay tax on top of it. It'd be about $44.93. And there is number 15. Just keep in mind here that I did use 2 quick shortcuts. Hopefully I didn't lose you on this one, but I went straight to saying 70%, which is basically saying if you're not paying for 30% of it, you're still paying for 70%. And instead of adding the 100 and the 7% separately, I went right ahead and said this is 107% in total when you're multiplying the percentage of the item or the video game plus the percentage of the tax. Okay, I'm going to do that for the last few examples. See if you can make sense of that as well. Number 16, you go shopping with a bunch. You go shopping and buy a bunch of clothes that costs $148.95 altogether. Everything is currently on sale for 35% off, and tax is 7%. What's the final cost you pay for all the clothes? Okay, so let's see. You have 35% off, so you don't have to pay for 35% of it, but you're still going to pay for 65%. I believe that's what you get when you subtract. So 65% of this 148.95, and 65% as a decimal is 0.65. We're going to multiply that by 148.95, and 0.65 multiplied by 148.95 is going to be, let's see, that's going to be 96.8175. Okay, and looking at this, the 7 is going to tell this 1 to bump up and say, hey, you're basically another penny. You're close enough to being one at least, and this is going to be $96.82. Oops, and 82 cents. I'll keep this consistent. This is the discounted price, the cheaper price after the discount, okay? And now we're going to have to find out how much that's going to cost with the tax, the 7%. So you're going to have to pay for 100% plus the 7%, so that's 107% of this 96.82. 107% is 1.07 as a decimal, multiplied by 96.82. Let's go ahead and multiply 96.82. So 1.07 multiplied by 96.82. That is going to be roughly 103.5974. Okay, and this 7 is going to say to the 9, bump up, and the 9 is going to say, hey, listen, I'm going to be a 2-digit number, so that's going to not have enough space. That's going to bump this 5 up over here. So let's say that this is going to be roughly $103. Let me move this over so I have a little more space for $, and 60 cents. Okay, so sometimes it's a little strange. If you try to bump it up and it's already a 9, then it just bumps up the next larger place value. In this case, it's going to be the tens place or the dimes place. Okay, So again, you want to understand this is like 59 cents, but it's like 7/10 of a penny. That's basically just saying 60 cents. Okay, that is number 16. Number 17, a new backpack costs $39.50 originally, and it's on sale for 40% off. Tax is 7%. What's the final cost that you're going to pay? I'll clean that up just a little bit. Okay, so you have a new backpack. I have a, let's see, we have $39.50 and it's 40% off, so you're going to still pay for 60%, right? 60% of this $39.50. So 60% is just 0.6. Again, we're not paying for 40%, we're still paying for 60%, so that's the 0.6. 0.6 times $39.50, put that into a calculator as we've been doing. And that's going to be 23.7. So it looks like we actually don't have to do any rounding here, but maybe I'll add a 0 on the end just so we can see this is 70 cents, not 7 cents, right? So that's going to be the discounted price here. Kind of nice we didn't have to round at all. And let's now find 107% of this amount of 23.70, right? Just like before. And 107%, that's 1.07 multiplied by 23.7. So 1.07 times 23.7. This is going to be about 25.359. And this 9 in the thousands place is going to tell this 5 to bump up. This is about 25.36. So here we have it. This is going to be the final price of the backpack when you had a 40% off sale, which is you're still paying for 60%, and you have to pay for 7% tax, so it's 1.07, and you're going to be $25.36. Cool. Moving on. Last question for part 3, number 18. A new pair of glasses is going to cost $299.95. It's currently on sale for 7% off, and then you have a tax of 7%. Kind of tricky here. What's the final cost you pay for the phone? Now, what do you think? Do you think that it's actually just going to cost $299.95 exactly? Kind of seems like it, right? Because if you have 7% off, but then you have to pay 7% more, don't they cancel each other out and you basically have the price of the glasses? Let's see. And let's see if you can understand what's going on here. So if you don't have to pay for 7%, are you still going to have to pay for 93%? I think so, right? 93% of 299.95. Oops, a little bit neater. What's 93% as a decimal? That's 0.93 multiplied by 299.95. And multiplying these out, 0.93 times 299.95. That is going to be 278.9535. And looking at the pennies, this 3 is saying, oh, not quite. We're not going to bump up at all. So rounding this is about $278.95. It's not going to budge there. Okay. So this would be the discounted price, $278.95. Okay. Now, this is the discounted price, but we're going to have to pay tax on top, and that's 7%. So this is where we multiply by 1.07 or 107% eventually of this 278.95. As a decimal, this is 1.07 multiplied by 278.95. And let me see here, 1.07 times 278.95. I'm getting here that this is going to be $298.4765. But that's a lot of numbers. Let's round this. The 6 is going to say, hey, you're moving up a little bit. You're close. This is going to be $298.48. Interesting. So did it end up being the exact same price as earlier? Like, does this amount here, does it match this amount? And if you were thinking that it was going to, it's actually not. So what are we understanding here? Well, the 7% off, that's of the original amount. But then when you gain 7%, right, it's not of that same amount. You're finding the 7% more on a different amount. So it depends on what we're starting with each time. So just please be aware, if you take a certain amount and you decrease it by, I don't know, 20%, then you increase that new amount by 20%. You don't get back to the original. Just because you are not using the same amount that we're talking about. Okay, so there you have all the questions in part 3. Alrighty, so now that we have parts 1, 2, and 3 all complete, so we have part 1, that's right over here, okay, finding the discount and the cheaper price, and we finished part 2 where we just talked about tax and tip and finding the total price including those parts adding together. And then finally we talked about what if you have something on sale but then you have to pay for tax on top of that discounted price. Okay, so these are the first I guess 18 problems. Technically you didn't have to do 18, you just had to choose 12 of them. And hopefully you also might notice that if you look at number 1, this one right here, I'll put a star next to it. Number 1 is actually in the previous video that you may have watched on just learning about these topics a little bit more. Also, question 7 might seem familiar to you in that video as well with taqueria. And then question 13 might also seem familiar to you from that previous video as well. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to head on to the enrichment problems. There are 6 problems here. So if you chose to skip over the first 3 parts, then you could have just gone straight to part 4. And I'm going to go ahead and show these 6 problems now. Okay, so for number 19, you buy a new jacket for the winter and it costs $74.99. There is a 15% off sale going on and tax is 7%. Determine the total amount you pay for the jacket. Okay, so this first one's not too bad. This one's actually pretty similar with the other one, so it's a little bit of practice on that as well. So if you're not paying for 15% of the jacket, you are paying for 85% of the jacket of the $74.99. As a decimal, this is just going to be 0.85 times the $74.99. And so we have 0.85 times 74.99. That is going to be, what do we have here? That's going to be 63.7415. Now, looking at this, pennies, the 1 is saying, oh, you know, we're not really moving anywhere here. I'm not really that important here. So this is going to be $63.74. This would be the discounted price after we take into consideration the sale of 15% off. Okay. Now we're going to take this amount, and to find out how much it's going to cost with the tax, we're going to take 107% of the $63.74. So as a decimal, this is 1.07 multiplied by 63.74. And putting that into a calculator, looks like that is going to be 68.2018. And looking here at the pennies place, this 1, oh, looks like again, just like earlier, it's not going to make much of a difference. This is basically saying we have $68.20, not quite 21 cents, just a little more than 20. So that's going to stay the same. So if you had this jacket and it has 15% off and you had to pay for 7% tax, you would end up paying $68.20 just about for this jacket. Okay, that's number 19. Moving on to number 20. Number 20, a new TV costs $699.99 and you have a 25% off coupon, and you combine it with a 10% off sale that's going on, and tax is going to be 7%. So determine the total amount you pay for the TV. Okay, so we're going to combine coupons here, and typically that's going to be off the original amount, especially when you combine coupons. Some stores may do it differently, but for the sake of this problem, let's say if you combine a 25% and 10% coupon, that's going to be a total of 35%. So if you're not paying for 35% of the total amount, actually, I'll just write this one out. But originally, if you didn't have any sales, it would be 100% you would pay, right? But you don't have to pay for 25% of it. And you also don't have to pay for 10% of it because of the 2 sales. And it's going to be of this $699.99. So subtracting this is going to be technically 65%. If I think I subtracted that correctly. And we are taking this of this amount, and this is really just 0.65 multiplied by $699.99. So 0.65 in a calculator multiplied by 699.99. I'm getting that this is $454.9935. And if we go to the penny here, this 3 is insignificant. Sorry, 3, you didn't really do too much here. And so this is going to be 454.99. Doesn't really quite change there in terms of rounding. Okay, so this is going to be the cheaper price. When you had both coupons or both sales, you can kind of combine here with the coupon and the sale that's just going on. So that's the discounted price. Okay, now you're going to have to pay for a 7% tax on this. So let's say that's going to be 107% of that amount of 454.99. So 107%, that's 1.07. Let's multiply that by 454.99 and plugging that into a calculator times 454.99. I'm getting here 486.8393. Okay, so this is going to be the pennies place, and actually this 9 is going to bump this up. So this is actually going to be $486.84. Okay, this will be the final price of this TV. Okay, after combining a couple coupons and sales and paying tax on top of it. Okay, there is number 20. Let's check out 21 here. So you go out to eat with 3 of your friends. That's interesting. That's a little bit new information here. You go out to eat with 3 of your friends. So that's 4 people. I'm just going to go ahead and write that first. There's 4 total people. And you go to Nomad Pizza. I'm a big fan of food, especially pizza. And the food is going to be $47.82. Tax is 7%, and you're going to all tip 20% to the nearest penny. How much does each person pay out of the 4 people, right? Contribute to the total cost. Okay, so you have the food, right, and the tax and the tip. So altogether, that's 100%, which is the food, plus 7% plus 20%. We're gonna have to find 127% of the bill, which is going to be $47.82. And as a decimal, that's going to be 1.27 multiplied by 47.82. And 1.27 multiplied by 47.82, that is going to be, let's see here, 60.7314. And this is the pennies place. The 1 is saying you're not going to have to move change values. So 60.73. So it looks like that is going to be like partially our answer. So far, this is just like how much all the food costs here. What you're going to have to do next, though, is this is the total cost. I think the question says, let's take this amount and let's actually find out if how much each person's going to pay. And this is pretty like normal, right? Like a lot of people do this when they go out to eat. They just kind of split the bill if they want to kind of just share the cost of it. So we're going to divide it by the 4 people. And what is that value? So 60.73. I'm not going to do long division here. And you don't have to either. Just use a calculator. This is going to be 15.1825. And this is the cost per person. So to the nearest penny, this 2 is telling the 8, listen, you're good, stay the same. And so this is going to be $15.18. This is per person. Okay, roughly, right? We obviously had to round a little bit here because we have parts of pennies, which totally happens in the real world, but usually it's behind the scenes with the receipts and cash registers and stuff like that. So there you have number 21. Okay, let's look at 22 now. So you go out to eat in town with 5 of your friends. So you go out to eat and there's 5 of your friends. So how many people is that? That is 6 total peeps. 6 total people. And the food bill comes to $74.18. Tax is 7%, and you tip 20%. If you pay with cash, there is a 5% discount on the food bill. Interesting. So to the nearest penny, determine how much each person contributes to the total cost. Okay, so there's a little bit of a twist in this problem, right? And that's this 5% discount if you pay with cash. So in this problem, we're going to assume that you're going to take that deal and say, okay, if you pay with cash, you're going to save a little bit of money, and you happen to have the cash on you. Okay, so that's an assumption that I'm hoping that you're making in this video, just because that information is given to you. Okay, so you decide to pay with cash, and if you weren't sure about that earlier, hopefully listening to this is clarifying that for you just a little bit there. And let's see what we're going to do. So first of all, if you don't have to pay for 5% of the food, then you're paying for 95% of the food, right? So 100% minus 5% is 95%. Of the food bill, which is going to be 74.18. Now 95% is 0.95 as a decimal, and multiplying that by this, let's see what we're going to get, 74.19, just putting it into a calculator. This is going to be 70.471. That 1 kind of came out weird here. There we go. And this 1 is going to tell the 7, hey, you're good. Don't worry about moving. This is going to be 70.47. So this is actually going to be the new price after the discount, right, on the food bill. Now, to keep things pretty simplistic, I'm just going to use this as the new amount. So, you know, this is the new food bill because you're paying with cash. So this is going to be the cheaper price because you decided to pay with that. And then your tax and tip, let's just make it on this amount. Some people may choose to do different things, but for this video, I'm going to keep it consistent like that. So again, you're going to have to pay for 100% of this new price of $70.47, plus the 7% tax, plus the 20% tip. So that's going to be 127% of the 70.47. Okay, that's going to be of that amount. We can use a dot or parentheses for multiplication. This is 1.27 times 70.47, and multiplying 1.27 times 70.47 on a calculator, getting about, or exactly, 89.4969. And rounding to the nearest penny, this 6 is going to tell the 9 to bump up, but 9's already too big for one digit if we bump it up a little more. So we're going to get that this is going to be, what, $89.50. So that's going to be the total cost here. And what are we going to do with that? Well, we're going to take this value and we're going to have to divide this by how many people. We are splitting this 6 ways, it looks like. So we're going to divide this by 6. And how much is that going to be per person? So 89.50 divided by 6 people each. And this is going to be about, let's see, $14.90. Well, it's 916 repeater. It goes on forever here. So let's see what that's going to happen, or what's going to happen. This 1 is in the pennies place, and this is a 6, so that bumps this 1 up. And so this is going to be, let's see, move a little down to get some space. This will be $14.92 per person. Okay, that is per person here. Cool. So that should be the total price per person for each of these people. Now, just keep in mind, sometimes with discounts, even though you receive a discount for whatever reason, you might still pay the tip to the waiter or waitress of the original amount before you get the discount. But I think that's just kind of some preferences as well with people. Just like with the tip, not everyone pays 20%, but I just use that as a rule of thumb. I know some people choose to use a little bit more than 20%, a little less than 20%. Just I kind of cut the difference there and try to keep it as simplified as possible. Okay, so that is 22. Okay, so let's go ahead and maybe just take a peek on these last couple problems. So 23, it says you treat 4 of your closest friends to lunch at Amazing Thai, Thai restaurant in the town, to celebrate your birthday. The total cost of tax, food, tax, and tip was $94.52. Okay, that's the total. That has food and tax and tip all together. And if tax was 7% and you tipped 20%, determine the cost of the food without tax or tip. Interesting. So this is a little bit of a backwards problem from before. So it doesn't matter how many people really are here going out to eat. So this question is really just asking if we can work backwards and figure out how much the food cost without it. So how would you go ahead and solve this? Well, we can use a variable to kind of represent this, but this one definitely requires a little bit more thinking. So we do know that you have to pay for 100% of the food, and we do know that we paid 7% tax plus a 20% tip. But what is this all of? Well, we don't know of the original amount, so I'm going to call this X. So X represents the original amount of the cost of the food prior to multiplying this out. We just know that when you do this, you end up paying $94.52. Okay, so that's the end result, right? That was $94.52 was with everything involved. Now we have to find out the percentage of everything. So 100% plus 7% plus 20% is 127%. Of X is equal to $94.52. And as a decimal, 127% is 1.27 times X. We can just write it as a coefficient. That means the same thing, right? If you just put them next to each other. So we have the equation, or the one-step equation, of 1.27x equals 94.52. Now, if you want to go ahead and solve this, then you're going to have to use the division property of equality and divide both sides by 1.27. And if we take the 94.52 and divide it by 1.27, again, I'm on a calculator here, we're going to get that the x is going to be about 74.43. I'm going to round it already. I'm not going to write out all the numbers here. So what was the cost of the food prior to getting the adding on the tax and tip? The original food, so I'm going to say here the food costs about $74.43. Okay, that is cheaper than the final price with the tax and the tip. So that should make sense. Now, if you want to check this to double check and to see if this makes sense, you can totally do so. You can take this 74.43 and you can multiply it by 1.27 and try to go forwards now. Again, with equations, it's nice. You can always check it. And if I multiply that by 1.27, you're going to see that this is going to come out to $94.50. I guess it technically rounds to 53 cents, but you can see that this is actually very close to this value here. It's just because of a little bit of rounding, which is causing the pennies to be off, right? So when we do enough rounding, it's going to cause some error, but I think you can see that this is reasonable. We're within a penny here, and just we rounded earlier, so it's a little bit off now, okay? So there you have number 23. Whenever you have the final amount and you want to go back and find the original amount, you can set up a one-step equation and go ahead and do that. And you can just call this x value here, this x just represents your original amount, and you have to work backwards. Okay, so just an application of one-step equations as well here. All right, final problem of this video is number 24. A factory produces a Pusheen stuffed animal for $4. Okay, they sell it to Target, marking it up 500%. Target then marks it up 250% to average everyday customers walking through the store. There is going to be a 20% off sale, and there is a 7% sales tax. Determine the difference between the final cost an average customer pays for the stuffed animal and the factory cost. So, okay, well, hold on a second. Difference means subtraction. So what was the factory cost? The factory cost, just going back to the beginning, the factory cost looks like that's going to be this $4 here. So I'm just going to put that on the side here. I'm going to say the factory cost is $4. So whatever we find out what the average customer pays, we're going to have to compare that to this $4. Okay? So we know that the factory is producing this Pusheen stuffed animal for $4. So I'm going to go ahead and write that here, $4. And they are going to mark it up 500% when they sell it to Target because they need to make money, right? So when you do that, right, you're really saying you have $4. That's the price that they paid, but they're going to mark it up 500%. So that's going to be plus 500% of the $4. So times the $4. This is going to help us find out the price that Target is actually going to buy it for. So the Target store is going to have to pay a larger price or higher price than what the factory produced it. Otherwise, the factory is not producing any money, right? So this is the percent markup right here, or the amount that it's being marked up. This is 500% of this $4. Now, try to think about what this actually means. So if you take this $4, that's the original factory price. 500% is what as a decimal. Well, if you slide the decimal over twice to the left, that's just going to be 5. So it's 5 times $4. Okay. So this 5 times $4, that's really the same thing as the 500% of it. We just converted it to something we can use a little bit more easily. So $4 was what the factory, it cost them to make it. They mark it up 5 times $4, that's going to be $20. So in total here, if we combine these, it looks like Target is going to have to buy this Pusheen stuffed animal for a total of $24. Okay, so that is super important to kind of go from here. So this $24 is going to be what Target buys it for. So I'm going to go ahead and write that here. This is specifically for what Target is purchasing it from the factory. Now, what did the factory cost? Well, the factory cost was right over here, right? This is the factory. So the factory, they made it for $4 and they're selling it for $24 to Target. That way they're going to make a $20 profit every time they sell one of these stuffed animals to them. Now, Target bought it for $24 and they need to make some money off this. So what are they doing? Well, what Target is going to do, because they want to make money here, is they are going to take this price and they are going to mark it up 250% here, right? So let's see. We have this $24 that Target paid. Now, if they sell it for $24, then they bought it for $24. They're not going to make any money, right? So they're going to mark it up as well. But they're not going to be able to mark it up as much because it's already getting a little pricier for this stuffed animal. So they're going to have to mark it up. They're saying 250% of the $24. So again, right here, this is going to be the additional profit they're trying to make when they sell it. And so this $24 is going to stay here, and they're going to pay more. So what's 250% as a decimal? I believe that's just 2.5. Okay, 2.5 times 24. We're going to have to go ahead and multiply these two together. I think I know what that is, but I'm just going to plug it into a calculator just to be sure. This is 2.5 times 24, and that's going to be $60. Okay, $60. That is going to be the extra money on top that they're going to be charging. So adding these together, we're going to get what's 24 plus 60. I can just do that here and say that's going to be $84. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and box this and say this is what we're the average person. So right here, this is the average everyday person is going to have to see this on the actual, just kind of like, you know, you're walking through Target and you see this giant Pusheen and you're gonna have to pay $84. Now, there's kind of a supply chain here going on, and this is what happens in the real world. These things don't just like, you know, Target's not manufacturing these things. So, you know, there's the factory and they're making it, it costs, whoopsies, the factory makes it for a cost of $4. They can't sell it for $4 or else, you know, they just wasted a bunch of time and resources making it. So they mark it up by 500% of the $4. That turns out to end up being $20 more. So when they sell it to Target, Target buys it from the factory for $24. So the factory profits $20 and they can pay for everything they need to pay for, including their workers. And then Target's trying to make money. So Target has people to pay as well, right? So Target's going to take this $24 and they're going to mark it up as well as much as they can so that people will still buy it and it's profitable. So that's going to end up being $60 more on top. So what do you end up seeing it on the shelf as we go and buy stuff? We see $84, right? So far you're saying, well, this is a lot more money. Well, yeah, this what happens with things all the time. This is how companies and businesses make money. Okay, so you know they mark it up, and this is what you see it on the shelf as $84. But what's hidden behind the scenes? What's hidden behind the scenes is then you know all this other stuff going on with the markups. And what are they going to offer you? Well, you know, people like a good sale, right? A lot of people like seeing a sale and they're like, oh, I'm going to buy stuff. So there's a 20% off sale. So it's kind of frustrating maybe to know this, but as a customer, as everyday customers, stores will all the time mark things up to make things a lot more expensive. And then they will put a discount price on it because it makes you feel like you're actually getting a good deal on something. But they already marked it up to make it a higher price, and then it's behind the scenes, and then they give you a sale to let you think that you're getting a good deal on the price they set already. So we're gonna have to take this discount. If you're not paying for 20% of it, you are still paying for 80%. So let's find 80% of this $84, and 80% is 0.8. So 0.8 times 84. So 0.8 times 84 on a calculator, that is going to be, oops, I guess I'm running out of room here. I guess I can keep going down the other page, but I think I'm just going to move this off to the side. I'll move it over here. Let's see what that's going to be. That's going to be $67.20. So this is going to be the sale price. Let me go ahead and put a box around that. I'm running out of colors here. Sale price, did I use blue? I don't know. I'll just use black here. This right here is going to be the sale price. Okay, and there's still a 7% tax on top of this. So if you're going to pay for 100% of this new sale price, but you have to pay 7% on top, this is where we're going to think about multiplying 1.07% times this $67.20. 107% is 1.07 times 67.2. So 1.07 times 67.2, and that is going to be 71.904. Okay, and so this is the pennies place, and the 4 is not quite halfway, so we're going to say this is going to be $71.90, just about. Okay, so this right here is going to be what you get to pay, because that's cheaper than, you know, the original price sitting on the stores right here. But they're making you think, oh, it's 20% off, so you get to save some money, but you have to pay tax. So when you saved money, that ended up being here, and then you pay tax on top. That's $71.90. Okay, so this is basically the final price. I'll write that here. This is the final price at the end of the day. So the question is saying, you know, what's the difference between the original cost that the factory made it for versus like the final consumer or average person like you or I would buy this thing on the shelf at Target. So to do that, to find the difference, keep in mind that the direction said from the beginning, we're going to find the difference here. Difference means subtraction. So if we take 71.90 and we take away the $4 from the factory cost, 71.9 minus 4 is going to be, I think, what, 67.90? I think I did that right. Add 4 to that. Yeah, seems right. So there is going to be a $67.90 difference here. Difference. Okay, so big difference. Different industries have different percent markups and make a different profit margin. In this case, this Pusheen stuffed animal is going to create a $67.90 difference from what the factory costs to what, you know, the person actually buying it at the end of the day. Okay, so that's the all the problems, the 24 problems from this homework assignment. So hopefully you can understand how maybe businesses work a little bit more, and how restaurants make money, and how waiters and waitresses make money, and just how to apply your concepts and understanding of percent, proportions, part, and whole. The whole is always the original price. The percent is always going to be the discount or the tax or the tip and all those types of things. And we're just finding the part. And every time you're finding the part, you can just multiply the percent by the original or the whole, and you will come up with the part. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below, and keep spreading the word to help this channel grow. All right, so good luck on your future work.